heart of Silicon Valley. It's What's Up in the 90s, an entertaining look at people, places, and things, and how they affect you, your family, and your career as we move into the 90s. Now here's your host, Brian Stuckey.
Hello, welcome to What's Up in the 90s. We've got an interesting show for you today. I've had a number of people ask me about getting into a home, real estate loans, things like that. And I'm honored to have a couple guests, Anna LoGerfo from Cypress Financial with us today, and Jim Hemphill from Southwood Properties, who's a broker. And they're going to give us the expertise that we need to know about getting into a purchase contract to buying your first home. And welcome.
Thank you.
Nice having you guys. And I want to start with you, is that a lot of people that come into the realism that they might be into the potential home buyers, they've been renting for a number of times and everything else, and they're getting a little tired of making those rental payments.
Right.
So think about buying a home. If somebody comes into the situation, a realization that they want to buy, what would be the first step that they would take?
I think the first step is to contact a real estate broker like Jim, someone that can give them the expertise of the area and the homes and everything. Secondly would be to contact a loan officer so that they can be pre-qualified for a home, so that they know how much home they can buy. And also to get their comfort level, so they know that actually their rental payments compared to their mortgage payments with the tax write-offs and everything isn't very much of a difference.
Okay. Well, since it's, I'm sorry about that, since we should begin with Jim then, if they're going to come to you first, Jim. If somebody comes to you and say, hey, look, I'm interested in buying a home, what are some criteria or some questions that you might have for them?
One of the first things that a good broker or agent would do, Brian, would be to meet with the people. If it's a husband and wife, it's good that they're both there, not just one or the other, because even though that they're going to be sharing a house, sometimes they have certain needs or wants in a house that the other might not expound upon. So rather than just jump in a car and go out and start looking at homes, it's better if you take an hour, have them in your office, sit down and learn as much as you can about your client, starting with first how much money they make, so you can have a general idea, and all good agents will be able to do a kind of a quick qualification of price range. Ask them and break down a monthly payment based on what you think Anna would give them a loan for, and that'll put them in a price range. Talk to them, and as Anna mentioned a little bit about, a lot of times they think the payments are too high, but if their after-tax result, in many cases, is only maybe the same or a few $100s more than they're paying in rent. And then you find out what they want in a house, what they're looking in a house. Very often that will determine in the Santa Clara Valley what area you can show them homes, because certain price ranges are much higher than others. And it gives you a good feel for what you, as their agent, are going to look for. I never try to show clients a house the very first time I meet them. I want to learn about them, and once I learn about them, the price range, what they want in a house, what they like, the style of living they're like, then I'll send them on their way, and then I'll go out and start previewing some homes in that price range, and then call them up and bring them back out to look at a home.
Okay, so you actually do some pre-qualifying yourself then, without actually getting a hold of someone like Anna to begin with?
Initially, yes, although it's extremely important once I see that they are legitimate buyers and they're serious, then I will send them to somebody like Anna, or to a number of people, and have a qualification letter, so that if we find something and we go in with an offer, if I can show the listing agent and the sellers that these people are legitimate, not just me saying so, but Anna or companies saying that Mr. and Mrs. Smith are qualified for a home or a loan in the amount of, that really helps out. We don't have multiple offers in this kind of market, but it makes the sellers at ease and feel comfortable with your offer that you go in with.
Okay. Anna, if people then are coming to you then to see what they absolutely qualify for,
right.
What happens at that point when they come in to talk to you?
Well, what we'd do is find out how much income they make. We'd review their credit history with them. We'd review their employment history. And then we'd see generally how much they could afford, but there's other ways of making them afford more. We can qualify 7% more borrowers by doing a 1-year buy down in interest rate, which many sellers will agree to paying.
Now, one thing is that some people might not know what a buy down is, and so...
That's correct, sorry. A buy down is where you actually get the interest rate that's listed for the day, and you can buy it down 1%.
1% lower
so
than what
1% lower than what it is, and you would qualify at that lower rate. So it enables the people to have their first year of payments at a lower rate, so it sort of like eases them into the payment stream, and it helps them qualify. So we would also find out if they're looking for a fixed rate or an adjustable rate, and there's many variations of the fixed rate. There's the 30-year fixed that has a balloon payment in 7 years, which is usually lower priced than a 30 due in 30 years. And we would just sort of find out what kind of financing they're looking for, how long they intend on staying in the house, if the house is for investment purpose or for living purpose.
Okay. One thing is you mean owner-occupied versus non-owner?
Non-owner-occupied,
okay.
correct.
One thing that's, I lost my track frame of mind there for a second. I can do that, folks, every once in a while. Okay. But one thing is that when they come in and you see how important is credit, how important is some of the other factors. What are the most important factors that you'd look for?
The most important factors, credit plays a very large part, but you can get a loan pretty much even if your credit's bad. It just depends on how good of an interest rate you're going to get. So if you have perfect credit, you get a more competitive interest rate than if you have bad credit. So we can get a person a loan. It just depends how good of a loan we can get them.
Okay. Now, you mentioned if they had, a lot of times I don't think people would have a choice, or would they, between fixed and adjustable rate mortgages. Let's say their income wouldn't hold up to a, because their income is too low, they can't get the higher fixed rate, or could they? Is there always a fixed rate program they can get into? Because a fixed rate would raise their payments, correct?
Correct, but when you have someone that earns less income, we would try them out in several programs. We could, as I said earlier, the 30 due in 7 years has a lower interest rate and fixed rate, or we could try something like a buy down, buying down the interest rate at a lower rate so they could qualify. But several times, if you're talking that they really don't make very much money at all, then an adjustable is their best bet a lot of the time. But we would weigh all the factors out and determine which one they'd be better off in.
Okay. Jim, let's go on further with your process then. Is that, let's say that you find out that Anna's found out these people can qualify for a home in this range. You mentioned you haven't taken them around quite yet to show them homes, but what would be, now you're actually taking them out and showing them homes. What's that process like? What goes on there?
Well, in today's market, Brian, let's just use figures, and let's say that they've told me that they have maybe $20,000 that they could put down, and I've got a letter from Anna saying that her company would give them a loan for $180,000. That means that they could handle a purchase price of $200,000. In this sort of market, I would look as high as $250,000 in a list price for a house, because there are some sellers out there today who have to sell. And with the few number of buyers that are looking, and by the way, it really is a buyer's market right now, so that if anybody had any thought of buying, this, in my opinion, would be the time to buy. I would look at homes anywhere from $250,000 on down.
Sounds like you're a buyer's agent too.
Actually, I'm not. I'm a broker in a small company.
I mean, in this situation.
But it really, truly is, because I'm on the side of representing a lot of sellers. And I've seen what sellers are willing to do. In some of our new homes, they're paying 6 months of principal and interest for somebody to buy a home. I've seen other regular residential resales where sellers are paying closing costs, they're paying for buy downs, they're paying for improvement on the houses, things like that. So it really is a good time for a buyer right now.
Okay.
And I would encourage people that have any interest. And a lot of times they don't think that they have enough money to buy If they have good credit and they make a good income, they can get in with as low as 5% down. And I'll tell you, there are 80, 15, 5 programs, and you take that same $200,000 house now, you literally can get in with $10,000. So I really would have people that are renting now get into the housing market.
There's also things that I want to cover in the second half, if we could, like equity shares. There's a lot of creative ways in the market, I assume, like today. And I think that's the importance of working with experienced real estate people, agents or brokers and loan officers, is that a lot of people try to tempt this on themselves, and they're really not getting the best deal they possibly can. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in the second half. We're going to take a quick break, but before we do, I want to thank California Mortgage for sponsoring this today. When we get back, we're going to keep going into it, folks, so bring out your pens and paper and write this stuff down. We'll see you in a bit.
From the McGruff files, the case of the Tucson tip-off. In the Midtown area of Tucson, Arizona, things were no doggone good. Burglaries were up, spirits were down, and folks were fed up. So they worked with police to get their neighborhood back. They organized community watch groups. In just 3 weeks, burglaries were down 30%. The people of Tucson are making a difference, and you can too. Write this down, and I'll show you how you can help take a bite out of crime.
Hi, Brian Stuckey here at California Mortgage, inviting you to give me a call with regards to your real estate loan needs. Whether it's a purchase, refinance, or home equity loan, I can help you. If you need money for bill consolidation, construction for your dream home, investment purposes, or home improvement, don't hesitate to give me a call for information. I can handle good or bad credit, past bankruptcies, high debt ratio, and those who are self-employed. California Mortgage is located in Campbell, the Pruneyard Towers main lobby. Come see us. Who was that goofball anyway, huh? Anyway, we're back. California Mortgage, Brian Stuckey here, along with Anna LoGerfo and Jim Hemphill. And we want to go back and talk about some of the creative ways that you, as a potential home buyer, can get into a home. And first, Anna, if you don't mind, I want to talk about MCCs.
Right.
And a lot of people aren't even aware of what an MCC is. If you can kind of explain that to us.
Okay. An MCC is it's a bi-county subsidy in a way. It's a tax credit where what the lenders do is they will credit you 20% of the annual interest towards your payments and your interest. And what they do is you lower your payments in qualifying only. And so it helps, let's say you had a $1,000 monthly payment and your 20% credit turned out to be like $200. We'd qualify you on $800.
Okay.
And at the end of the year, what you do is you get a tax credit that's actually taken off of your income, so your base for taxes is lower.
Okay. So it helps you to pre-qualify, but do you actually see actual savings in there as well?
You see dramatic savings because it's 20% off of your income saved on taxes, so you're paying less taxes in the end of the year. And it's for first-time home buyers only. And it's by county, so you would have to contact each county. Well, the lenders know which counties have the money and everything like that.
Okay.
But it's a great opportunity for first-time home buyers.
Okay. I think it's important to leave a footnote here in that the MCC program is in jeopardy being discontinued. And I think you know a little bit more about that. Is that right? We've been hearing rumors through the industry that it is going to be discontinued. But when we call it confirmed, there's been no confirmation of that. So it is pretty much a month-by-month process right now. So if you can get an MCC now would be the time. Okay. If you have any questions with regards to MCCs, you can contact Anna LoGerfo over at Cypress Mortgage, Cypress Financial, or you can call myself, and I'll give you the number later on over at California Mortgage. Jim, what are some other creative ways that people, you mentioned 80-10-10s, 80-15-10s. If you can elaborate on that, and keep in mind we've got people that really don't know what's going on, you know, because they're first-time home buyers.
Well, I mentioned getting in with only 5% down. There are a number of sellers out there right now who are very willing to be able to sell their house and carry back a second mortgage on the house. Okay. And in many cases, and with the more sophisticated sellers, with very, very good terms, and in some cases long-term, anything over 5 years for a secondary note would be considered long. We've seen 10-year notes as low as 9% interest. the going rate on seconds is anywhere from 10 to 12%. But if somebody really wants to sell their house, I sold a rental in 1981, 82, and it was a bad market. It started out at 6%. So if you have somebody that really wants to sell, they can be creative in the second. I'm also seeing that the agent that the client works with, or your listeners work with, are really not restrained in any way. That agent should draw up what is best for his client and present it. And we're seeing an awful lot of loans go through, or contracts go through that way, that have a very creative type of financing concerning the purchase, without endangering either side. Just a way that'll put the package together so people who don't think they can buy, don't think they can afford, feel comfortable in purchasing in this sort of market that we're in right now.
Okay. Could you explain for us then real quick too as well the difference between a buyer's and seller's market? Because we've seen over the last couple of years it go from one side to the next.
Yeah.
And if you can explain that to our viewers real quick, what happens there?
I guess the easiest way is the supply and demand. Right now there are too many sellers, or people who've got their house on the market who don't have to sell, who would just like to and take that instant increased equity they got in the spring of '89 and retire or go someplace else. Those people that don't have to sell, if they take their houses off the market, and the people that really, and drop the supply down to meet the demand, because now with the economic condition, there aren't as many buyers out there, so there's fewer buyers chasing too many listings. If we brought it down to fewer listings, with even the same number of buyers, it would make it a normal market. The other way around that we had was very few listings and a lot of buyers. And that created multiple offers and created houses going on at $200,000 selling for $220,000 because people were willing to just go, they wanted the house that bad. Right now we're in a buyer's market where the buyers, there aren't that many of them, they're king, they can really almost name their terms. And sellers are beginning to really realize this, and as a result prices are coming down to meet the economic conditions. But I've been in real estate long enough, they'll eventually go around the other way. It's not going to stay here. And that's why I really encourage the listeners out there that are buyers, this is a very good time to do something.
Okay. But as far as lending, though, if it's a good time to buy, Anna, one thing about the Kuwaiti situation, is as far away as it seems it does affect our economy. And is this a time where lenders are maybe buckling, tightening up a little bit and making it a little more difficult for people to buy? What's your response?
What we've been doing is we're sort of in a wait-and-see mode. We're being led by politics a little bit right now, unfortunately. Things like the budget, Kuwait. We don't know what's going to happen. And so we are more tentative. We are a little bit slower at easing interest rates, or at, we're checking the borrowers out a little bit more. But in the same note, we are bending a little bit more with borrowers, because if they are a good borrower and if their payments are a little higher than we think they would normally be able to afford, we'll still bend a little bit with them so that they can get into the home since we're in a wait-and-see mode. We don't want to, talk buyers out of it, and if they're good buyers.
Sure.
So we're just waiting and see.
Okay. A little caution here.
Yeah.
Now, I need to go through, I know there's a lot of people that have inquired about buying homes. They've been introduced to fixed rates, to adjustable rate mortgages, ARMs, also negative amortized loans.
Right.
Can you briefly, I know this is hard, I hate to put you on the spot, but can you briefly go through real quickly, without elaborating, just on, people might know what fixed is in an ARM, but maybe, what is in a negative amortized loan? Okay,
what I'll do is cover all three real quick.
Great.
A fixed rate loan would mean that your payments are fixed for the term of the loan, which offers you security in your payments. They won't change. An adjustable rate loan means that the interest rate would fluctuate according to the index that you're tied to.
Okay, and what's an index?
And an index is an average of the cost of funds. 11th District is the most popular. There's also Treasury securities. A negative amortized loan it works the same way as an adjustable rate loan, but your payment is fixed for 1 year.
Okay.
And so it's fixed for 1 year at a time, so that you still have the security of the same payment for the year. But what happens is when your interest rate adjusts usually on a monthly basis. If it goes over, if the interest rate is higher than what you're actually paying on, they just add it to the principal balance at the end. So what happens if you get a $100,000 note in a year, you might owe like 100 and let's say 2,000.
Okay. So you might have an increase, but you're able to get in. I imagine that would be the benefit, is that, am I correct, is a negative amortized loan like a last resort to get people into the home, or
well, yeah, it helps a lot of people qualify because the interest rate's really low. We've seen some 6.9s out there for qualifying 6.9 interest rate. But also a lot of investors like the negative amortization because it allows them to get a positive cash flow from that property. So depending on your needs, depending on your security level, we might put you in that even though you would qualify for a fixed rate loan. And that's where a loan officer would talk to you and just determine what you really want and feel comfortable with, and also what you qualify for.
Okay. Jim, as far as we touched on this, and since we touched on it, I feel obligated to talk about one other thing that people can do is equity shares. Do you mind explaining that real quick to us?
Basically, an equity share is where the buyer who's going to be living in the house finds somebody to be a co-owner with them. Sometimes it's a relative, father, mother, aunt, uncle, whatever. Sometimes it's an investor that maybe I have in my office who has money, who wants the not just to own a place, but and doesn't want to have the upkeep and responsibilities of a landlord, and wants somebody who's going to take care of it in there, and they'll talk to me about being an investor. They'll put up some of the money in return for some of the ownership in the property, and knowing somebody who's going to live in there is going to also be the owner and take care of it. It's better than a tenant, let's say. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of ways of equity sharing for somebody who doesn't quite have enough money, or in some cases any money.
Now, if you look at both borrower and investor who's participating in the equity share by coming up with a down payment, what are the benefits to each of them? Like, I know there's some tax benefits there.
Yeah, there a benefit. Let's start first with the investor, is that they get depreciation on a house. That's something that the owner, the co-borrower, who's living in the house, doesn't get depreciation, but they get depreciation. They get the interest write-off. They get all the things they would get in a investment home that they held. The other co-owner, let's call him the owner-occupant, is getting the same interest write-off on the loan based on the percentage of ownership, is getting that type of write-off, is getting appreciation as well as the other co-owner, is not getting depreciation. Okay. That's about the only thing they're not getting in comparison with the owner-investor.
Okay. I got to ask you, is that a lot of people, I know the Mercury News came out with an article recently where it said that we can expect housing to be in this situation rather stagnant until the 91s. Is it, would you agree with that estimation, or do you?
Yeah, unless the economic and political scene changes, I don't see our buying changing for the better at all. And better, when I say better, for sellers, and better for prices and that type of thing. I do think that the prices went up just too fast in '89 and took too big of an increase. And whether our economic Gulf crisis thing was involved and our other economic problems, I think we still would not have or we'd still have a sort of a decrease that we have now. But I hope that these things will change in '91, but I don't see it changing in '90. But as I said at the beginning, I still really truly believe that there still is money to lend, there are still homes for sale, and somebody who's looking, this is a very good time to take advantage of that, because when it turns the other way, we've seen how that can be, in many cases, very, very frustrating for buyers.
Okay. And I got to ask you, we're getting ready to close here, but what do you forecast as far as the real estate loan industry here?
We're seeing that probably till the end of the year will remain as we are right now in a buyer's market. Also with the Christmas season coming up, things generally tend to slow down because people are more concerned with gifts than purchasing. And hopefully things picking up in the spring of '91.
Okay.
And when they do pick up, it'll be fun.
Well, I know everybody's, you know, in the industry and, you know, is excited about, you know, the market, even currently, but they're always expecting like the buyer's market, pardon me, the seller's market coming back in, because you know there's going to be a lot of purchases going on at that as well. But
and that may not even happen in the spring of '91. I don't know that it'll get to a seller's market. I just think it might get to a more normal market.
Right. And that's advantageous for everybody in a normal market.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's get back to normal. That's, you know, that's the
There
main
we go.
thing.
There we go.
We got way out of whack there. We've been, you know, going from one way or the other. Look, I want to thank Anna LoGerfo from Cypress Financial and Jim Hemphill from Southwood Properties. Give them a call if you have any questions. I don't think their number is listed on our teleprompter or anything like that, but give them a call. They're in the yellow pages. Jim's in Cupertino. Anna, you're where?
In Fremont.
In Fremont.
And it's Southwood.
Southwood.
I don't want to
I'm
call it
sorry.
7-Eleven. I want to call it Southwood.
Southwood Properties. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
But, or you can give me a call over at California Mortgage. My number is 524-1097. And by the way, I carry this little thing around with me, so if you do call, I'll get your message. And please, only business calls on this. I've had otherwise.
Yeah, no, the girls.
But thanks for joining us today. Next week, I'm going to have Mason Sturgill, he's a comedian and amongst other things, so we're looking forward to that show. Good night.